Hey guys, Coach Adam talking to you again today with a big announcement. The Masters Olympia is back. It's been a few years since this show's been around, and I'm super happy that it's back and that the Masters have an option for the Olympia again. That used to be a big deal back in the day, and it is back now, so very excited for it. And congrats to Jessica Wilson, who won the show. Let's go ahead and do a breakdown. We had one of our athletes, an athlete that I prepped myself, that made it to the Masters Olympia, and she ended up with 5th place. So congratulations to Ellis Angel. Let's go ahead and break down positions 3 through 5th, and then we'll break down 1 and 2 and why Jessica won this show. So in 5th place, we have Ellis Angel. In 4th place, we have Carrie-Ann Henich. And in 3rd place, we have Nucia Fretos Samos. So looking at the 3 of them in 5th, 4th, and 3rd place, I think the judges did a great job. And I wanted to go break down into Ellis Angela because that's my client. And I wanted to go into how well she's doing. She won a pro show earlier this year. And on top of that, I think that she's doing really well. Obviously 5th in the world as a Masters now. But the cool thing about her is that she's 5th in the world as a Masters now, winning pro shows, and she's doing so not being fully complete yet. So that's the real important thing. You know, earlier before I was talking about Lauren Dannenmiller, how she got top 10 in the world when she wasn't fully complete yet. When someone is doing really well and they're not complete yet, that's when you know someone is going to be good, where they're really dangerous. So what does Ellis Angela need? Well, the main thing with her is she needs more overall shoulder width. She gets some shoulder width. That's going to help her a lot with balancing out her lower body. Her lower body is pretty much where it needs to be in terms of the quads and the hamstrings. She can use a little bit more in the tie-in, which we'll go into in a minute. But the upper body just showing more overall shoulder width. Also, her shoulder in this front pose was a little bit high on that back, something that we worked on. Obviously, you're never going to nail it every time, 100% of the time, especially at a big show like this when nerves are high. But getting these shoulders a little bit straighter and getting a little bit more overall width to those shoulders, a little bit more size of those shoulders, is really going to help her balance out her upper to lower body. She had a tough prep. She has to prep really hard to get her tie-ins to show up. And sometimes her core comes in a little bit hard. So for her, it's going to be a matter of, can we get her core just a tiniest bit softer with getting her tie-ins just a little bit harder, with getting her shoulders a little bit wider. And that's going to have her being that much more competitive and maybe working her way up to winning the Masters Olympia one day, which would be an awesome feat. So congratulations again, Ellis Angela, amazing potential. Now, looking at Carrie-Ann, very good physique. Looking at this show and looking at the competition, I might have had her 1 or 2 spots higher. Very complete physique, good density, good overall fullness to her physique, but I do think her legs are what's keeping her from moving up. Her quads are just a little bit small compared to everyone else around her, with just that fullness of her legs. So a tiny bit more fullness at that level, but proportions, ratios, beauty flow, everything on her is really good. From the back, amazing, but from the front, just a little bit more fullness. I think that's what's keeping her from moving up in those spots. Now, looking at Nucia, great overall physique, I think can work on her posing as well. She's not showing that back shoulder so well. I think that she can open up her shoulders a little bit and show more overall width, which is going to help her because she's got crazy glute ratios, small waistline, but needs to balance out her posing and bring those shoulders over more to create more of that upper body width. Great fullness to her legs, great roundness to her hamstrings. I really don't think her lower body needs any adjustment on the posing. It's just her upper body needs to show that fullness that she has and show that full V taper that she has there to help balance out her overall physique. Would it have helped her move up another position higher? Maybe it was. I would think it's pretty close between 2nd and 3rd there for her. I don't know if it would have moved her up much, but I know that it's going to make it a lot better, and maybe it'll move her up on the next time. Presentation-wise, all of them did great. Hair, tan, makeup, suit, all of them did a great job with it. Of course, they should. It's the Olympia level. I wouldn't imagine anything different. But let's go ahead and turn them to the back. Okay, now looking at them all from the back. So one of the things with Ellis Angela, great overall fullness to those upper outer edges of those glutes. Really good fullness all the way through the entire glute. Now, areas of improvement, a little bit more in the tie-in. Just a tiny bit more. It's almost there, but just a tiny bit more. And as we talked about earlier, remember her core is just pushing it just a little bit too hard. And now her tie-ins need to be pushing it a little bit. It's just a little bit too soft. So you have one area of her physique, her core, which gets a little hard, one area of her physique, which is a little bit soft. So how do you balance out those two? Well, it's going to come down to having just a little bit more development in the tie-ins, like we talked about earlier in an earlier video where we talked about Issa needing to actually build more muscle to be able to push that muscle through that layer of body fat without hardening up her hamstrings too much more is going to be the key. Now, looking at her overall hamstring separation and detail, it is about where it needs to be. It's starting to see it. So I would like a little bit more glute development out of her, a little bit more tie-in development out of her, so we could soften her backside just a hair, which will soften the front side just a hair, but then the tie-ins will be pushing through that fat because it is a little bit more muscular, and that's what's going to solve the problem to that. And as you talked about in earlier videos, like solve a problem with like Issa has as well. This is a common issue that people have. Now, going over to Carrie Ann and looking at her from the back, she's got a very good glute, very round glute to her. Looking at her tie-in, really good tie-in. There's a great sign of a tie-in without full etching. But when you look at the detail of her adductors and her hamstrings, too much detail. You're seeing too much separation in the hamstring, too much detail in that deep groove in those adductors. You're seeing vertical separation in the hamstring down here. So just a little bit too much. Her glutes probably saved her, though, because she does have more tie-in than Ellis Angela. But I could see these two swapping based on that. And based on the front, honestly, Ellis Angela has a little bit more fullness to her quad. But I think that if Ellis Angela has a little bit more shoulder, she would have beat her from the front. And I think from the back, it's a kind of a toss-up. Do you go with more tie-in? Do you go with less tie-in? Do you go with someone who's hurting in the conditioning? Or they're a little bit too much, like a Carrie Ann? She's just a little bit too much in the tie-in. Or do you go someone who's just a little bit not showing enough in the tie-in, right? So it's just one of those kind of back and forth that you'd go with. And I think that they got this right when everything's said and done. When looking at Carrie Ann's pictures originally, I'm like, okay, I might move her up. And I could see situations where you would move her up a little bit because when you go to third place and you look at Nucia, she's actually hurting herself because she's so good. That's the problem that she's running into. From the back, she's starting to get those squared glutes, just a little bit too much development. The squaring of the glutes is where she's starting to get. You can see here where Carrie Ann has that fullness to the glutes and the roundness still, but she's not squaring out her glutes. And you see Nucia, she's just squaring just a little bit. That's just right past the point of bikini in terms of the squaring of the upper glutes. It's hard to fully see that when we talk about squaring of the glutes. You don't see too many examples of it in bikini, but that would be one. And it's just a little bit too much squaring. So I would pull back a little bit on that upper outer edge of the glute, which is a rare thing that I'll say. I'm always saying more and more. And this time I'm saying a little bit less, or maybe the posing can change it so it's not so squared at the top. Now, when we look at the hamstrings on her, the hamstrings could be a little rounder, a little fuller, but not a lot. They're not bad from the back. They actually look pretty good. I would like to see a little bit more roundness, but all in all, pretty good from the back. And I could see exactly why they have her in third place. But as you could see, all three of them from the back have little holes. At the top level, everyone's going to have just the tiniest bit of holes, and you can separate them if you know what you're looking for. But let's go ahead and jump into first and second place and see why Jessica holds the throne as the new Masters Olympia Bikini champion. In battling it out for first place, Jessica Wilson and Janine Herrera. So congrats to both of them. Congrats to you, Janine, as well, finishing top 2 in the world as a Masters. So let's go ahead and do a breakdown. Why did Jessica beat out Janine for this one? So first off, looking at their upper body, that's what you want to break it down, starting off right at their upper body. Looking at the shoulder caps of Janine, Janine is pushing those shoulder caps a little bit past the bikini limit. You're seeing full striations in the shoulders. You're seeing a real full capping to the shoulder. That is past the point of bikini. Look at Jessica's shoulders where they're round and they're full, but they're a little soft. You're not seeing any crazy striations, any crazy detail, any deep grooves of those shoulders, and you're seeing that real deep separation groove here on Janine, and that's going to be a big deciding factor of is she pushing it past the point of bikini. Remember, it's not about who has the most impressive physique, it's about who's the most bikini criteria physique. If you put her both of them on the street and said who has got a better physique, everyone would say, oh, Janine, she's more muscular, she's more jacked, she's got a better overall physique. It's a more advanced physique, but it's not better for bikini, right? And that's the difference here, and that's what you're running into. Now, looking at both of them from the upper body, that's the main thing you see is you see the graininess, you see the detail. You see a little bit of the biceps that are overpowering the shoulders, just a hair on Janine. So Jessica really nailed it in terms of her conditioning for bikini here. Now, both of them, I think, could use just a little bit more detail in their core. Not a lot, but just a tiny bit. I always say I want a kiss of muscle of separation in those abs, but no deep turtle shell abs, no thickening of the abs by getting those deep grooves in the abs, but a tiny bit of definition. I want to see more than just a flat stomach here. I want to see a little bit of abs. And I think that that's something that Jessica can improve on at the Olympia and hopefully improve her placing. This does get her an Olympia qualification, so she will be going there. She already had one. No surprise there, but if she didn't, this would get her to it. So next year, Masters Olympia winner, maybe it might not be Olympia qualified already. And then this is some things that you're going to be seeing 10 weeks before the Olympia and the improvements that they can be making going into the O. Now, looking at Janine and Jessica from the lower body, one of the things that I'm seeing is that Janine, again, is looking a little too dense. You're seeing all this detail, all these striations, all this deep detail on her legs, on her shoulders. And it's just a little bit too much for bikini. Now, in terms of her balance from upper to lower body, it's not bad. I don't think there's any real issues there. I think everything's just a little too dense, a little too deep detailed, and that's what's causing her the loss against Jessica. Had she softened this up a little bit and not came with so much hardness, she might have beat out Jessica at this show. I think it's entirely possible. But when you look at Jessica, she's got that round, pretty muscle, and it's just hard to beat if you're going to show up dense and detailed like this. Okay, now looking at Jessica and Janine from the back, it's a little more obvious at the conditioning, at the hardness, and the graininess that I was talking about. So when you look at Janine and you look at this deep, detailed tie-in, you're actually even seeing detail and separation lines within the tie-in itself, just pushing it a little bit too far. So the detail is just a little bit too much. You're seeing all this graininess and detail here in those tie-ins. That is what you would call an etched tie-in at the bottom there. Versus Jessica, where she's got the tie-ins where they're complete tie-ins, your full complete tie-ins without the etching of the tie-ins. When we look at the hamstrings, look at how round and full Jessica's tie-ins are, and you look at the hamstrings on Janine, there's a lot more detail, separation, grooves, all that in the tie-in. Now, I do think that Janine can also use a little bit more fullness. You're seeing a little bit of that skin go around the suit, and that's something that could be the suit maker itself. Maybe it's a little too thin there. So advice for you guys, when you can see the suit, if you see that suit material right there through the back pose, it makes you look a little bit leaner versus when it's touching around the suit, it really hurts you. So if you go too thin on the suit on the back, it makes you look a little less conditioned. So make sure with your suit maker that they have enough material there where you can still kind of see the suit like this, and it makes her look a lot leaner than when it's touching around the suit, right? That could just be an illusion. It could also be that it's just she needs to fill out her glutes a little bit more. It could be skin's a little bit looser in that area. It could be a lot of little things, but it's something that I think that she can work on to make improvements for next year for sure. So it's an easy win for Jessica here when you're comparing her first to second. Not an easy show for her to win at all, but when you're comparing first to second, you can see why Jessica walks away with the win here. She, again, hits the bikini criteria from A to Z. Rounded, full shoulders without too much capping, great V-taper, that soft, pretty muscle without too much hardness to it, full glutes without squared glutes, great roundness to the hamstring without separation. All the details that we need to see in bikini, she's hitting them from A to Z, and she's doing it with great stage presence. The hair, makeup, tan, all that's perfect. She competes a lot, so she's always going to nail that. So congrats to you, Jessica. And let me know what you guys think of the Masters Olympia. Hopefully one day they put that in Las Vegas too. I would love to see that here, or at least in America, so we could all go to it. But what do you guys think of this year's Masters Olympia? Are you excited to see it again? Leave it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, TeamElitePhysique.com for worldwide online contest prep. Thank you guys so much. Talk to you later.